The first 10 minutes will be Journey Management 101, where we will look at a common definition of journey management, and then we'll explore the 5 fundamental components of a successful journey management program. Next, we'll look at how the practice of journey management is evolving and what new tools and processes companies are adopting. We'll also look at existing and incoming regulatory standards that impact your traveling workforce. After that, we'll take a look at how Telelink ties this all together. You'll learn a bit more about us, our technology, and how we help companies like yours every day. And to close out the webinar, we'll have a round of questions and answers. Right now, I'm going to hand it off to our presenter Laura.
Thanks, Chris. Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're calling in from. Chris just went over the agenda, and I'm going to do my best to keep it to 45 minutes today. He went over how long we have for each section. What I'm going to do right now is start with the Journey Management 101 section. And really, as Chris suggested, this section is about giving kind of an established framework and a common set of language for how journey management is defined and what's necessary to roll out a journey management program. So let's start at the very beginning. There's a lot of our customers and a lot of the companies that we talk to, they all have their own version of journey management. Everyone describes it in a different way. But at its core, when you look at journey management, the objective is to eliminate driving-related incidents that bring harm to people and property. Organizations can minimize injury and damage by identifying and managing hazards and minimizing exposure to unnecessary travel. So I actually got this definition or this phrasing from a really useful tool that some of you may be aware of. It's the Informed Journey Management Program Development Guide. I've got the link there on the slide, so if anyone is interested in that guide, you can email me afterwards and I'd be happy to send you the link. But Inform is an upstream oil and gas safety association based in Alberta. So a lot of the Canadian folks on the line might be familiar with them. And they've got a lot of resources, so if you're interested in that, just let me know. This definition, though, really speaks to the preventative nature of journey management. And we always talk about journey management differing from other employee and asset monitoring programs by its approach to risk mitigation and preventing things ahead of time. So let's dive into that in a little more detail. The 5 fundamental components of journey management. So we're going to tackle them one at a time, and I won't go into too much detail on this first page right here. Let me just skip into the first one straight away. So the first fundamental that we wanted to talk about was policy and procedures. So your policy is really, what constitutes a journey. At the very basic, how do you categorize a journey for your employees? And this is really important because employees need to understand when they are required to book a journey and when they don't have to. And this might be different for every organization. So you may say that any travel outside 60 miles or 100 kilometers requires or is considered a journey. You may consider journeys to be any travel outside of metropolitan areas where help would be readily available to someone. Completely up to you to define what a journey means, and it really should suit your operations. It also is really important to address to whom the policy applies. And that might seem like an obvious question. So you might say, well, anyone who drives would be expected to follow it. But what we see a lot of times is that your DOT regulated drivers or your field staff, folks that are driving every day, are often expected to comply with the journey management procedure and often do, but employees at the executive level, salespeople, often don't follow that policy. So it's really important to make sure that your procedure makes allowances for these types of employees as well. You may want to differentiate and have a routine versus a non-routine journey, whereby your everyday drivers can have the routine procedure, and folks that don't drive every day, such as your salespeople or your executives, can use the non-routine procedure. It's also really critical to define the roles. So who is considered a driver? Who's considered a journey manager, the person who's actually required to monitor the journey and ensure compliance? Who has the authority to approve a journey? And who are the emergency contacts? And do they know what their responsibilities are if they get a call and something has gone wrong? The other aspects from a procedural perspective, of course, are the documents that form part of your policy and that your employees will interact with. So the first one there would be your journey plan. Now, not all organizations have a journey plan as part of their journey management procedure, but it is best practice. And your journey plan is really the place where you would include all the information about the trip and any details that could be foreseen ahead of time, and would form the basis for whether or not a supervisor would approve that trip. You also have your trip risk assessment, of course. Again, not all companies include it, but it's certainly best practice, and that would be on your day of. You have a check-in procedure. So this would be for anyone who's driving to have to check in at specific intervals, and those intervals can vary depending on the risk of a particular journey, but it's really important to have them because they form the fail-safe. If someone hasn't checked in by a specific point in time, you know that they may be in trouble. And then, of course, you need your escalation procedure as well. So when something does go wrong, when someone doesn't check in, when you receive an alert of some kind, what happens from that point forward? What is the procedure that that person has to follow? All of these things should be laid out very clearly in your procedure. One best practice that we wanted to mention here, and a couple of our customers have this, and it's really neat and a really good tool for drivers and employees, and that's to develop what we call a journey booking tool. So this might be a laminated page that can be kept in the glove box. It may be a little card that can be kept in their wallet. It could even be an air freshener that you hang off of your mirror. But it basically has all of the important details that a driver would need when they're about to book a journey or when they're about to go out on a journey. If you use a third-party provider, you'd have the 1-800 number there. If you have a risk assessment, you probably have that on there as well. So let's skip ahead to the next page, the journey management plan. So again, this is the document that forms the basis of approval between a driver and a supervisor. And it also acts as your record and your proof of compliance. It's the place where you want to evaluate all potential risks that can be assessed ahead of time. So things like, does the driver have the proper training and qualification? Is the driver familiar with the route? Could this travel be avoided? Are there other employees to share the driving? All of these things can be foreseen ahead of time. And of course, all the specific details of the trip would be included here as well. Destination, any passengers that would be driving or going as well, the route details, all of that would be on here. A best practice concerning the journey management plan, it's really important that whatever records you maintain contain the proof of approval in order to prove compliance with your journey management procedures. So if you were ever in a situation where there was litigation or you were being audited, if you have a record of a plan without any proof that a supervisor actually signed off on that or that the driver signed off, it doesn't really show anything except a form that's captured a few details. So there's a number of ways that you can show the approval, and that would either be by having signatures from both the supervisor and the driver, or you can save a copy of an email from the supervisor acknowledging approval. You can also use journey management software showing electronic approval workflows, or you can have call recordings. All of these would be considered acceptable. So I just thought I'd pop in an example of a journey management plan, and you can find these anywhere online. You do a quick Google search under journey management plan, and a bunch of these will come up. So no need to reinvent the wheel. My advice would be, if you don't have one already, simply look for one online, tweak it, make it your own. That's probably the best place to start. So number 3, trip risk assessments. This is arguably one of the most important aspects of a journey management procedure. And what makes this so important is that this is what ties into that preventative nature of journey management. The whole goal is to really prevent high-risk journeys from ever occurring in the first place. So you want to tackle all of the risks that you cannot foresee ahead of time here. Are the weather and road conditions suitable? Is the driver well rested? Is the driver's cell phone or satellite device adequately charged? Is the load properly secured? How many hours has the driver been on duty? And it's also important to include approval workflows and more or frequent check-ins if there are high-risk journeys. Another best practice to think of here is really keep it simple. So if you have a lengthy risk assessment, we've seen companies that have anywhere from 15 to 20 questions, and no doubt that's some excellent risk mitigation tactics right there, but when a driver is concerned with just getting on the road and getting the job done, if they have to work their way through 20 questions, it can be quite daunting, and they can get into that habit of just ticking the boxes. So we see the ones that are most successful where, drivers get really engaged in it when they're simple, 5 to 10 questions, easy to answer, no complicated phrasing. Just keep it short and sweet. So I wanted to give you an example of a trip risk assessment. And this is one that we have with a couple of our customers, actually. It's very short and to the point. It asks, do you feel confident to complete this trip safely? Is your cell phone adequately charged? Will the trip consist of daytime driving only? Have you had 8 hours of sleep? And is the driver familiar with the route? So the way this works typically is that depending on what the answers would be to the questions, it may put the risk score higher or lower. And a high risk score would typically require a supervisor's approval, or at the very least more frequent monitoring check-in intervals. So rather than say every 2 hours having someone check in, it may be every hour. I want to draw your attention to one question in particular here, the very first one. Do you feel confident to complete this trip safely? That might seem, again, like an obvious question when you first look at it, but this one question has actually proven to be very instrumental in our journey with our journey management customers. And it sometimes acts as a buffer between operations and safety. We do occasionally get drivers, when we ask this question, who say, no, I don't feel confident to complete this trip safely, but my boss is telling me I have to go. So by having that question there, it gives an out to the driver. They feel like they can voice that to someone, and it allows us to kind of put that little buffer there to say, hey, there may be a little issue here. Typically, what happens is we'll let the safety person know that person said no, they don't feel confident to complete the trip safely, and a conversation will start internally from there. So it's a really good question to have in your risk assessment if you don't have it there already. Number 4, telematics. This one is it is optional. You certainly don't need to have telematics or vehicle monitoring system in place to do journey management. You can have a journey management plan, you can do a trip risk assessment, you can do manual check-ins, all without telematics, but it does provide real-time location and proactive alerts that could indicate an issue long before a missed check-in ever could. So if you think about a situation where you have someone out on the road and they've had an incident, if we don't have a telematics system incorporated, we won't know that that person is in trouble until a check-in has come up and they've missed it, and at that point we'll go looking for them. But if they have a vehicle monitoring system integrated into the journey management solution, not only will there potentially be alerts that can say, hey, an airbag deployed or there's been a G-force rollover, we can also know the exact location of that individual. So rather than try and guess where they are along the route, we can know the precise location. It also allows us to do geofencing. So if you have vehicles that are kept at a central location, you can apply a geofence around that location. And then if someone takes a vehicle out but doesn't book a journey, an alert can be associated with that, and it can also be pulled on a report. So there's some really neat ways that you can enhance your program if you have telematics involved. We do have a caution here, though, in terms of a best practice. We really see journey managers as being there as support for the drivers and making sure that drivers get to their destination safely. So we tend to discourage people from including any alerts that might be supervisory type alerts of driver behavior. So if something would result in a driver being given further coaching, they were speeding, something like that, that really shouldn't go to whoever's managing the journey. That should go to the supervisor. The journey manager should focus on anything that might indicate that that driver is in danger or non-compliance with the journey management procedure. Journey Management Center. So this is the last of our fundamentals or best practices, if you will. And I wanted to illustrate this example with a study that I've gone back to time and time again in the last few years since I was first made aware of it. It was an industry colleague of mine that shared this with me. It's called Driving to Real-Time Compliance in Land Transport. And this was a study that was presented at the SPE conference in 2010. SPE, for anyone who isn't familiar with it, is the Society of Petroleum Engineers. And it was presented by Gary Allen of Schlumberger and Wayne Fee from Safe Drive International, which is now MIX Telematics. And their study was really about determining if a dedicated function, a dedicated team, looked after the monitoring of journeys, compliance, would that make a difference in the number of vehicle incidents? Would that prevent more incidents? So they did this study over 3 years, and they had some tremendous results. They had a 69% reduction in catastrophic, major, and serious vehicle incidents from 2008 to 2009. So pretty compelling number. And the way that they describe a journey management center is really, you know, I'll read the quote from the paper here. It says, each JMC was provided with web-based software that performs hazard assessments and risk control for each journey, provides visibility of driver certification, past performance, and incident route data. This is augmented with data in respect to vehicle position and speed provided by IVMS in real time. So what you're talking about here is a dedicated 24/7 team, software that's going to consolidate all of the data input. So rather than having a journey management plan with some information, an HRMS system that may contain someone's emergency contacts, the back end for a vehicle monitoring system somewhere else, you have everything in one place. They also had real-time visibility, and of course they're automating compliance records and reporting. So when we say automating compliance records, what we mean there is automated alerts. Rather than having to go and look to see if someone is complying, you get alerts that will notify you if someone is out of compliance, meaning they're behind, they haven't checked in, there may be a crash alert. And then of course the journey record also automating compliance in that you don't need to maintain a paper trail. So this was a really interesting study, and if you want to read this, you can Google the title, Driving to Real-Time Compliance in Land Transport. It takes you to a page where you can, I think you have to pay $25 to $30. It's a small investment. It's well worth it. I've gone back to this paper time and time again, so I would encourage you to look into it if you're looking to improve your journey management procedure. Okay, we're going to stop momentarily for a few quick questions. And Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Laura. If you do have any questions, again, please feel free to use the questions pane on your GoToMeeting panel. We'll just pause here for a few seconds to let everybody get their questions in, and then we'll get back to the presentation.
Okay, so we have a question here, a really good one. What telematic platforms have you integrated with so far? So from Tellink's perspective, there's a number of ones that we have established relationships with already. That would be MIX Telematics, Geotab, GFI, InSync, GE. I think I might be missing some. I think there's probably about 10 that we've integrated with already. And typically what happens is if we bring on a new customer that has a system that we haven't worked with before, we simply evaluate the data that comes from that system, and we build the integration, and it typically takes about 2 weeks to get that done. So we've just been kind of adding more IVMS systems as we come across them through new customers. It's a good question. We have another question there. Can we get a copy of the slides? I would like to discuss this and read this more thoroughly. We're actually going to be, we're recording the webinar, and we're going to be sending that out probably within the next couple of days. And if there's any particular slides that you're interested in, just send me an email afterwards, and I'm sure I can send them along.
Okay, thank you for the questions. I do see a few more here rolling in. What we'll do, we do have some time dedicated at the end for questions and answers, so we will come back to the question pane at that time to answer any questions that we didn't get to here. Thank you, everybody.
Perfect. Okay. So the next section that we have here is really looking forward to the future. So in the first section, we established kind of where we are today, what the fundamentals are, what you really need to form a solid journey management program. What we wanted to do now was look at some of the trends that are coming in between, technology, process, and really just give a view as to where we see journey management going. So the first thing that I wanted to touch on was technology. So you'll notice, I'm going to start on the right-hand side where you see mobile. And we've seen an explosion in terms of everything for apps in the last few years, of course. And journey management is no exception. So, there are a number of journey management apps available. The one that we have here is Vetus, which is the one that we work with. And sometimes it might seem counterintuitive to have a phone app for journey management because you always think, well, we want to make sure drivers don't use their phones while they're driving. But a journey management app doesn't mean the driver has to use it while they're driving. It means rather than call into a center to book a journey or to call their supervisor, they can simply use a phone app to input the details, log it, put it away, and then away they go. And the rest would happen as it normally would. Most of our customers, if they call in on a journey system, they will take rest breaks at predefined stops and will let us know when they reach those stops, hey, I'm checking in via text message. So it works the same way with an app. You would simply use the app once you got to your rest stop. And there are some apps as well that have kind of an automated function so that as you're driving, the app automatically knows that you're moving and will check you in for you. The other app that you see here is a really neat one. It's free. I would encourage anyone to download it, and it's called OneTap. It's released by the cooperators, but if you search OneTap, you'll find it. And what it does is it locks your phone while you're driving, and if anyone calls or texts you, it will send them a text message saying that you are currently driving and unable to respond. But it also allows that person to signal if that's an emergency, and it will then alert the driver if there is an emergency that they need to pull over for and answer the caller message. So a really cool app. The next section that I have there are wearables. So we've seen this explosion of personal devices, we'll call them, whether it's satellite or cellular based. But this device that's coming out now is from a company called Fatigue Science, and there's a number of companies that are doing things like this. But it's all about tracking the fatigue levels of employees. And this is crucial when it comes to journey management because we've seen, and you see a lot of, you go to any of the safety conferences now, and fatigue management is always a hot topic, and for good reason, because a lot of the incidents that we see on our roadways are caused by fatigue. And a lot of times in risk assessments, you'll see questions that address fatigue management, how many hours have you slept and whatnot. But by wearing a device like this, it can actually determine the fatigue levels of the person wearing it. So this can be good in a number of ways. They haven't yet reached the point where they can fire off alerts if someone has reached a dangerous level of fatigue, although that would be great, and we could certainly incorporate that into journey management. But the way that they're using this right now is they're having workforces wear this, compiling data, and then determining of your workforce, are there certain groups of people that are more fatigued due to shift times, as example? Is there a way to maximize your shift schedules or your driving schedules to combat the issue of fatigue for your drivers? So some really cool things that you can do with that. The other technology that I want to bring up are the dash cams. So we've seen a number of these presented at conferences in the last couple of years as well. And there's two key things about the dash cams. From one perspective, it's great for fatigue management. Some of them are able to detect by watching your eyelids if you're fatigued at the wheel. So again, if we could get, once these providers get advanced enough that they can start generating alerts for that, then you're going to start getting extremely proactive in detecting fatigue in drivers. But at the very least right now, it can detect fatigue, just not able to fire an alert. But it's also a great tool for accident investigations. So if there is any type of incident, the dash cam will kick in and it will record what happens. And that can be excellent when investigating the cause of an incident. So in terms of regulations, before talking about kind of the new one that I think is going to have the most impact on journey management, I wanted to tackle the three that really should be addressed in every journey management procedure right now. And some of these I know everyone is probably aware of, such as the duty of care. So, you've got a section of the Canada Criminal Code, and you've got an OSHA section that's dedicated to this. And this is, any safety person would probably be aware of this. It applies to all employees. But it is something that you need to be aware of course, from a journey management perspective as well. Then more specifically, hours of service, of course. You want to limit the consecutive drive time and requiring sleep and off-duty time. This plays into fatigue management, of course. And you'll see this, obviously this is more pertinent to your everyday drivers and your DOT-regulated drivers. But it's a really good practice to, if you have drivers or a journey management program that incorporates drivers that aren't DOT drivers, so office-based employees, it's still really good practice to ask them the same questions in terms of how long they've been on duty and sleep. The last one there that a lot of people don't think about is lone worker regulations. So these are mandated provincially in Canada, and in the United States you have the OSHA standard 1915.84. And a lot of people don't associate drivers as lone workers, but they are, and they're arguably the lone workers that are most at risk. So it's really important when you design your journey management procedure that it meets all of the regulatory requirements for all of the operations or all of the regions that you operate in terms of lone worker regulation. Very, very important. So the new regulation that I wanted to talk about was the electronic logs that came in recently in the United States. This is the functionality to have electronic logs is already available with some telematics providers, but within a couple of years, all companies will be required to maintain electronic logs. And while this is limited to the United States for now, we know here in Canada that they're looking at this as a best practice and will likely be moving to that same type of regulation in the near future. So we are seeing some companies in Canada kind of jumping the gun and just going ahead and getting on board with this as well right now. But the data from this is huge for journey management. So right now, if someone is booking a journey, let's say, if the telematics provider doesn't have electronic logs, which the majority of them don't right now, we had to ask that driver, okay, how many hours sleep have you had? How many hours have you been on duty? And that's great. Most drivers are going to be honest. But the nature of the beast is that many drivers are incentivized to drive more and drive longer. So there can be situations where if a driver thinks dollars are on the line, he or she will lie in order to be able to go ahead with the job and earn the money. So having the data from the electronic logs come through to your journey management program allows whoever's taking care of the journey booking or the compliance to see precisely how many hours that driver has been on duty, whether or not fatigue levels might be a danger, or whether a particular journey is going to take them over their drive time. So it's going to make it a lot more proactive. One thing you also want to make note of too, for any companies that are now looking at telematics providers, this should be something at the top of your list in terms of electronic logs. And it also is important to ask them how available that information is to other third-party providers. So if you use a journey management software, you want to make sure that the electronic log information is part of what we would call the API, or the information that is made available to third-party providers. So the last piece that we wanted to touch on in terms of trends is the evolving process. And this is where we're starting to see the term travel risk management. So for a long time, journey management has been thought of as really about road travel and mitigating road risk. And that's really where it started. But we're starting to see this trend now of journeys being not limited to road travel. Journeys could be road travel, plane travel, boat travel, you name it. And if you think about the process of booking a journey with your pre-trip planning, your trip risk assessments, and your monitoring, all of these exact same components apply to someone who's traveling as well. So if you want to travel, say if you were traveling domestically or internationally, you would probably drive to the airport, you'd be on a flight, you'd get to your foreign destination. All of that can follow the exact same process as a regular journey management procedure. And really what happens is driving and travel just simply become two branches of one journey management procedure. So if you drive, you may have two sub-branches as routine and non-routine under driving. Under travel, you may have domestic and you may have foreign. And when you think about the risks that people face when traveling internationally, they're huge. I mean, you have, in Colombia alone, you have on average about 2,500 executives that are kidnapped every single year. And a lot of the companies we work with, their journey management procedure, all of their everyday drivers are following it to a T, but their executives and their management level employees who are traveling internationally, oftentimes the only person who knows about their travel arrangements are their executive assistant. So it's really important to, if you have people that are traveling, if you have salespeople, they should all be incorporated into that procedure, and you should really broaden that definition of journey from just being strictly road travel to any kind of travel. And again, it may mean that you have a different procedure for general travel as opposed to road travel, but that's okay. And that means that you're going to get a lot more adoption and a lot more levels of employees that are going to be really engaged in that process. Okay, Chris?
Okay.
Time for more questions.
That's right. We're going to pause again for a few seconds to give everybody a chance to input any questions they have into the questions pane on their GoToWebinar panel. And we'll just give everybody a few seconds.
Okay, we've got a really good question here, and it says, with trucking companies, how do you establish the journey? Normally I've seen the journey been up to the driver. So how do we assess the safest route to take? That's a really good question, and that's where a journey plan comes into play. So if you have a journey plan that the driver submits ahead of time to a supervisor for approval, that is where you establish the route that the driver plans on taking, and it allows the supervisor to provide feedback and perhaps suggest an alternate route, or if that route is fine, go ahead and approve it. Some companies also have predefined routes. So they have routes that they know are safe, that they want their drivers to follow, and they put that in place. But again, I would go back to the journey management plan, because that's where anyone who's submitting a plan, the supervisor has the ability to approve the route, to provide any feedback on it, and assess any of the other risks that may come up for that journey. It's a really good question. Let's just see if we've got any others here. Okay, I think that's it for now. We're going to get back to it here. So the next section is, we call it expertise in motion. This is the part you've all been waiting for, the fun part. We're actually going to dive into what Telelink's journey management system is about, what our services do, what our platform does. So it should only take us about 5 to 10 minutes. It's going to be really quick and high level. But if anyone watching has any questions about how different specifics work, feel free to send me an email afterwards. My email will be up on the last slide, so you'll get a chance to jot it down, and I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you have afterwards. So Telelink has been around for about 50 years, and we started as a call center here in St. John's, Newfoundland. And over the years, with the development of the offshore oil industry here in Newfoundland, we started to get more and more requests to do safety monitoring. So it started off with lone worker monitoring, and then that eventually led into emergency response and journey management. And fast forward to today, that safety side of our business now accounts for 70% of our business overall. So we're very much an emergency and safety-based company. We have, to date, managed over 4 million journeys, sometimes up to 2,000 journeys a day that we're managing. And we are ISO 9001-2008 registered. And I'm going to touch on that in a little more detail in a couple slides, because that is something really important when it comes to our safety procedures. So as I mentioned, the Telelink Emergency and Safety Division does a number of different types of monitoring. Journey management, probably the most popular, but we also do lone worker monitoring, asset tracking, and equipment health monitoring. So really the way to think of it is the things that a lot of these have in common are alert generating. So when we're managing journeys, we're managing, missed check-ins and vehicle type alerts. In lone worker safety, it might be a panic alarm. For asset tracking, it might be a generator that's gone past its runtime. It could be anything like that. So really it's about monitoring and managing exceptions. So in terms of our service and our platform, the journey management platform that we use, which we're going to see in just a couple of minutes, accepts data from a lot of different sources, and this is really key. So number one, it allows our agents to log the journey details, and all of the driver details are there, the vehicle details, all this information is in one place for the agent, so that when something goes wrong, everything is at their fingertips that they need to properly manage that situation. Now we can take in data from, again, a number of different vehicle monitoring systems, and if it's one that we haven't worked with already, that's fine. Typically it just takes 2 weeks and we get it up and running. But we also incorporate handheld devices as well, so in-reach devices, spot devices, satellite devices like that. And we do often work even sometimes with very traditional type of journey management procedures where someone will actually call in and we'll do everything over the phone. So there's a lot of different ways to interact. In terms of the pre-trip planning, so with our system, employees can pre-book journeys ahead of time via a planning portal that allows drivers or travelers to include multiple legs. So if you were a salesperson going on a sales trip for a week and you knew your itinerary ahead of time, you could have everything pre-planned, and then when you hit the ground running, all you have to do is give us a call or use your phone app and activate each leg as you need to. Of course, if you have an internal planning, a journey management plan, that's fine, that can work as well. And oftentimes what we do for companies like that is when someone calls in to book the journey, we'll walk through the risk assessment with them, and we may even ask that person if their journey plan has been approved by their supervisor. In terms of procedural expertise, so we have a library of policies, procedures, risk assessments, employee training material, all kinds of good stuff. And this has really been developed over the course of 10 years in working with all of our customers who, some of them are among the leading organizations for safety in the world. And we've been very fortunate to learn from them, and now we'd like to share that knowledge with other customers. So those procedures and policies we are happy to share with our customers, and oftentimes that is a starting point when we bring on a new customer. We'll give them copies of the different procedures and risk assessment formats, and then our customers can tweak them as they need to. So our 24/7 monitoring center, of course, here in St. John's, is available anytime, day or night. And because of the nature of our services, we do a lot of emergency response work. Of course, we're looking after employees, whether they're drivers or lone workers. We have to be available anytime, day or night. And if the power goes out, too bad. We have to be up and running. And I always joke that the only thing that would take us out is nuclear warfare. And if that happens, we're all in trouble. But our IT center is world-class. We have multiple telco lines, backup generators. We are always available for our customers. In terms of reporting and documentation, so again, as I talked about throughout the presentation, with the software program that we use, all of this is automated for us. And customers do have access to that as well, so they can pull reporting when they need to. And the last one there, the ISO 9001-2008 register. So I briefly touched on this before. Anyone who's really familiar with an ISO 9001-2008 registration will know that the basis of that is really your quality management system. And when we talk about the quality management system, we talk about managing risk through process. And initially when we got this, it was really about managing our own risk internally. But we quickly learned that this was hugely important to our customers because we help to manage their risk as well. So a lot of the procedures that we use with our customers are part of our quality management system, and they're audited both internally and externally every single year. So it's really important. And we're one of only 2 centers in North America that has that registration. Okay, I'm going to quickly bring up the software that we need to do the next piece, and Chris is going to talk to you about a survey that we're going to be doing afterwards.
Okay, so while Laura gets this going, Laura did mention that we will be, two things actually, that we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar. And with that recording, we're also going to include a survey just to get a sense of, was the presentation helpful? What did you learn? And really just, make sure that we're providing expertise and knowledge that our audience is looking for. So keep an eye out for that email, and we'd be very grateful if you could just take a few minutes to download your recording as well as answer our survey for us. And back to Laura.
Thanks, Chris. So what I'm going to show you right now is a platform called Vetus, and this is a partner of ours that works in conjunction with us, has for many, many years. And this has been a joint effort for us. We've done so many iterations of this and perfected it over a lot of journeys. And you'll notice that this is web-based, so our agents use this to monitor journeys, but our customers use it as well. And customers get read-only access so that they're able to log in and see where any of their drivers are at any given time. And they can also use it for reporting as well. So it has the ability to download reports about your drivers and who's going into alerts, if any region is doing that more so than the other, and things like that. So I'm just going to touch on a few quick things. One of the things you'll notice right away is that we have these little circles that are showing up on the map. So this is an example of where we're incorporating data from devices, and some of these would be vehicle monitoring systems, and others would be handheld devices, such as the InReach. That's probably more popular with employees that are working alone, but technically anybody could use one. And the neat thing about this is this can give us real-time information on the location of employees, but also details, if it's a vehicle monitoring system, even details about the speed that that individual is going. It can also allow us to group individuals in a region. So let's say we had a customer that had a lot of drivers in the Arizona region, and there were, I don't know, tornadoes, and we wanted to pull drivers off the road. All we need to do is highlight that region, and it's going to automatically show us the drivers in that region. So we'll see the details on those devices and their location, their speed, all those details. So that will allow us then to reach out to those drivers and ask them to stand down or wait for further instruction. So it's really good and dynamic. Of course, we'll also get alarms from those devices. So if that may be an airbag deployment, or it may be someone has a satellite device and they're in the middle of the woods, like a utility company, they would be able to hit a panic alarm, and that would come through here as well. A couple things I'll draw your attention to here at the top. Normally, because this is a demo account, we don't actually have live journeys underway, but normally any live journeys would show here. It'll sort drivers so that our agents know those that have gone past check-in points and that need to be contacted. So it's really easy for the agents to follow up with everyone. We also have the ability, of course, to send text messages back and forth. We can talk to them back and forth through this if they have wireless tracking devices like the InReach. If they're using one of our phone apps, they can use that as well. And we can look for weather and send emails. So not only is everything that the agent needs available to them here, but they can communicate with the drivers through this platform as well. And then, of course, all of that communication is logged and forms part of the journey record. So that's really important. I'll quickly touch on the journey plan section. So this, again, would be where an individual would log in and book travel ahead of time. So that may be, a trip, an international trip, or it may be multiple drives, or it may just be one drive, however way you want to do that. Basically, it allows an employee to log different legs of a trip, and you can even include itineraries such as your flights, any information like that can all be held here, and you can look for previous ones. So if I do a query, and I can come up and I can see all the different journey plans that have been in here. So let me just quickly go to the journey management section. I'm going to show you what happens very quickly when we book a journey. So typically, all the information that you see here, we can get any number of ways. It may be the first time that somebody calls in, we'll capture the appropriate details, and then that'll be part of the record going forward. We can also sometimes connect with your internal HRMS system, in which case all of this information would be updated automatically on a nightly basis. So I'm going to go ahead and put my name in here as if I was booking a journey, and you'll see that my information comes up automatically. And I also have the ability to import from Journey Plans. So if you've booked Journey Plans ahead of time, you can pull those in, and then all of the details of the journey will populate automatically. Or you can just book it right from scratch and include all the information here as well. It also allows us to include comments right here on the side. If you had to text them the journey number so that they could subsequently check in via text, add any comments, all of that can be done here, and then all of those comments and actions are logged here as part of the journey log. So again, this forms part of your compliance. The very last thing that I want to show you is reports. So as I mentioned, you can pull reports at any time with your read-only license as a customer, and you can sort reports by user, by work location, business unit, region. You can pull journey lists that will provide the details of each journey, or you can just look at, drivers from a particular region and how often they're going into alert. Completely up to you, and you can kind of mix and match and sort your reports and export them however you need to. So we've come to the end of the demonstration, and I think we're going to give one last opportunity for everyone to share some questions. And if we don't get through all the questions today, don't worry, we will talk to everyone individually afterwards. Okay, I don't think we have any questions coming in, so I'm just going to put up the contact us slide. So if you need to, if there's any information in here that you want for yourself to talk about internally, if you want the links to the couple of resources that I talked about, anything at all, just send me an email. My number, or my email is right there on the screen, as is my phone number. And I did email out the invitation as well. So you probably, if you look through your inbox, you'd have my email there as well. Again, we want to thank everyone for taking the time today. We would encourage you to fill out the survey that we're going to send out, because it helps us be better at delivering these presentations. And we hope you have a great day. Thanks, everyone.